Buenas noches, everyone. I hope everybody's doing well, blessed, and enjoying family. As always, muchas gracias to everyone for everyone's words, wishes, prayers, as the love and support everyone shares with me. From the heart, gracias. Also, do please like, share, subscribe, and hype the video. Thank you. Well, everyone, today I'm going to touch on a question I've been asked on a numerous occasions, right? That always answer it's kind of a difficult one, right? Which is which really holds the most power, state, federal, or however you flip that question, but in the sense that question, right? I always say that's a good one. Uh, it's hard to answer, and it really is, right? Because when it comes to power, they all have power, right? Some are more relevant, and it has to do because of their own person. They're really out there making things happen. But on this one, I do want to touch at least in the one that's more active in doing things, right? Which is on Playboy. As everybody knows in Playboy from King Cobras, but for those that know the real Playboy from Stoner Stress, right? Anyways, I'm gonna take you back. What year must have been 12, 13, 2012, 13, right? Is when he was kicking off this per se this plan, right? With a camarada that was up there with us, and remember there was a time in Pelican Bay where mostly camaradas were on one side and Billy's were on the other side of the bay, right? Nevertheless, the camaradas that were up there from Stoner Stress were Spanky and Boy, good people. And, they had been slammed for a minute, but they were going to hit the streets. Basically, when you're in the shoe, yeah, I got a release date, you're going to meet it. Well, at least back then, because single cell, walk alone, you know, you got to keep it respectful with who does or wait in that. If they pop the door or something like that, other than that, you're going to go home, right? But, anyways, they had a date and they had a plan with Playboy, right? First and foremost is to get out and take control of Stoner Stress, and then from there start kicking it off. The one thing that Playboy did right, and I'm speaking past tense, right, is he clicked up with a Pili that's a paisano, a paisa, right? But he's in the feds. In the feds, he's a big mover and shaker when it comes to work, right? He has direct lines to Mexico, and that's cora, celis, but most all cora, right? The Pili Cora, el señor Cora. And anyways, Playboy and him clicked up in the sense that the mission they had for them was to open up casitas, but in a whole different way. What I mean by this is basically Spanks and boys, excuse me, needed to get a crew together and start making gambling casitas. And of course, in them gambling casitas, you guys know Pisto, and the dope side was going to be met by Cora, the señor, right? And that way, Playboy was seeing things from his side, from the Cali side, right? Not to have pushback from the California faction. You guys know how they play that favoritism back and forth trip, right? And Cora could get winnings from the Hale. Guys know I don't speak about current stuff, so I'm not gonna touch on where they're at with this now, right? But those are in the known. No, there's San Bernardino, East Los, West Los, the Valles. Well, it's a big move right now, you know, and I don't know if it's out there. So again, I'll go back to 2012, right? And go back to speaking on the camaradas. The camaradas from Stoners, they did what they were supposed to. They got all this on the pedal, right, to get done. It's done because, well, it's a huge thing now, right? And both Pilis, they're in the place they started with, period, point blank, right? But the one thing that the homies didn't expect is what a lot of camaradas don't ever expect when you're working that close with a Pili, especially in the moments where all your back and forth went to the shoe. Those that were in the shoe know there was no letter getting in and getting out. If you were in a hot seat without IGI or reading every word, letter by letter, you know, so it would eventually reach out, especially if you parole from there, right? And it just happened that, well, much later, right, is when Playboy was one of the ones that spoke for Romo, Wicked from Blythe, and they didn't expect Wicked with all his clecha to get out to Blythe and pretend he was a Pili, right? Try to run Blythe like he was the Pili. He missed the part, is you could run your neighborhood and be the middleman for us. We call the cuetazos, which kind of led to what led with him, right? But it's what brought heat more so over everything. And we're talking about 3, 4 years. The homie Spank and Boy were doing everything correct. But you see, when a Pili has to answer up for losses, of course, he's not gonna take it in the chest. He's not gonna assume full responsibility. What always happens is they're gonna act offended, hurt, and they're gonna throw a camarada down the pipe to meet the consequences. You see a couple of his casitas with jale, feria, everything were tailed, but they were tailed because it was expected, right? That Playboy was the one that called that cuetazo, right, on Wicked, which wasn't the case. You know, you guys know. I'll be honest with you. It wasn't the case. A lot of factors played into that. One is the biggest is Wicked went rug. Just being sincere, right? And anyways, in those raids, there was material loss, feria loss, and the homies got caught again. And it's kind of why they keep away from each other, and it's understandable. Federal Pili and state Pili working together, it can happen on the streets, right? But when something hits the fans, there's always misunderstandings. For example, one trying to get over on the next, right? And Cora being a paisano, of course, even though he's out there with the Pilis and the feds doing his thing, he's gonna always feel like there's something extra there. And what I'm talking about, where the homies got busted, was more so in Playboy's neighborhood, right? Well, stoners and in King Cobras in that area, right? And I don't believe Cora believed him. He believed, I think so, don't take it as it's what it is, right? It's my belief Cora thought they were trying to do him on Feria. And basically the paperwork of the homies getting busted for it sent out to him wasn't enough. There was a loss there. Playboy's responsibility with the camaradas everywhere he's at with them was keeping the front, you know, keeping the gambling going so that everything, keeping the place clean to throw law away, right? And Cora felt he should gain something for it. You know, Playboy being in the state basically said he don't know why they hit, but he has a feeling these two autos did something, and he was going to take care of it to keep working. After all, they had many other places, right? And he was going to be more hands on. So it's just that simple, right? Keep in mind, these two homies from Stoners, they started something and they built an empire for Playboy. And, even though the other Pili was in the mix, let's just be sincere. That was their big homie, right? The common mistake we all do, we all make. And even though I'm not going to speak on those that don't know the empire that's there, right? And, but instead of showing value for what the homies have done and that they're back, they ain't getting out no more to wash his hands with Cora, another member in the feds. It's easier to make up a BS story and pin it on the homies and have it hit. Keep in mind, time has traveled and they're already out right from the shoe. So, what are you gonna do in this era? Back then, everybody was in the Bay. Now you're gonna land where you're gonna land, and unfortunately, the jealousy and envy that's there from member to member. The moment you land on a yard with a different Pili, he's gonna have hate for you. Remember, the game is dope and money now. That causa carnalismo, nah. You know, I'm not saying it don't exist in somewhat, right? But from Pili to Sureño, nah. So that Pili off the gate is gonna have jealousy that you helped another member build an empire. Remember, there's a lot of Pilis that are just sitting down getting high. They don't have the mind nor the people to get things together, but they do have the power to take your career. Anyways, to conclude this, make it short, Playboy, to prove a point, had both the homies, Boy and Spanx, whacked, removed. Boy tried to come out again, he got whacked again. So basically, you guys know what was only left for him to do, which is unfortunately spread them yards even bigger, right? And I don't know their wiggles on that side, but they were good camaradas with a good head on their shoulder. Just imagine starting in a neighborhood, stoner stressing, and building from that to East LA, South LA, the valleys, West LA, the IE, and everything putting in the Billy's pocket. But see, the homies got caught for the tail that Playboy had, or it was meant to happen. If you're out there doing your thing, you're gonna get busted. It's part of the program. But in that case, hey homie, before you got busted, did you set someone there to take control of everything, that knows everything, routes, how to get everything? Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna wash my hands with you now. I'm gonna whack and remove you. Send things to calm down cora. And it's that simple. Here's two more camaradas that gave their freedom, their family, their life to go sit down, and not even in a program that, at least in my case, right? That's all I breathed and thought of. But now they're obligated to sit down from their cell, look out the window, and look at all them funny bunnies, and knowing they got no option but to either get slammed or programmed right around them cats. And that's exactly the in look on this one. The message. Are you willing to give it your all for these individuals? If you are, handle it. I'm not here for poisoning. If you're there, I'm one of those. I understand some people, you could paint it in 1,000 different ways and colors. They're just hands on. I gotta learn by experience type of thing, right? Which go ahead. I'm all for it. Till this day, I love what a Sureño stands for, what it should stand for, right? But anyways, the end look is that you could give everything away from a pili, but when you're questioned by another pili, that one individual you dedicate yourself for ain't gonna receive the hit. You're gonna come a casualty to wash his hands with the other pili. At the end of the day, he's the one that matters. Nothing you ever do will have a meaning. Take it from a fool that there's no reason to pinpoint, but I was talking to S1 today, and man, time flies, and you can push, but you won't get nowhere. Just be smart, stay true to yourself, and loyal to your loved ones. God bless everyone. And that's another answer for another question. Another paisa, that's a pili, el señor Cora. For those that don't know, buenas noches.